So, welcome back. And now we are going to start with Solas chapters. So, let's see what are the chapters of Solas. As Solas means International Convention for Safety of Life at Sea, 1974, and known as Solas Convention. It is from IMO, International Maritime Organization, and this is the latest edition of Solas, and it was started because of this Titanic in 1974, and credits goes to IMO for all safety of life at sea and safety of crew. So Solas Convention is regarded as the most important convention from all the rules of yours. Solas is called the Bible or main pioneer of all the conventions of this thing because in 1914 you had this Titanic which was hit with one of the glaciers, and there were not that much safety rules at that time. So this led to so many meetings and started the evolution of Solas, how to save the life of crew and people at sea. So 1974 version includes the tacit acceptance procedure. So any rules when all the world countries of the world accept it and they are ready to imbibe in their system, that is called your ratification process. Ratification means signed by all countries or flag state as per the what you call required terms and conditions of IMO. Suppose within 1 year, 70 countries should sign and accept and follow in their system. So that is your ratification process. So there are two types of ratification: tacit, time based, and the other one is tonnage based. So once this was completed, then this Solas Convention came into force. And it says that the amendment shall enter into force at a specified date unless that there any objections are raised. So if conditions are followed and nobody has objected, then the convention came into force in 1974. And it keeps on getting updated and amended. And this convention is followed by almost all countries of the world. There are so many technical provisions about the ship structure, details, damage stability. So we'll see each chapter one by one. And the main objective is like Titanic incidents to avoid and get safety of crew, safety of life, safety of construction of ship, and then the safety of environment. So standards of construction, equipment, operation of ships compatible with safety and the flag states. Then also there are many provision given by some flag states and contracted government to inspect ships of other countries, contracting states. So there is a port state inspection, flag state inspections, and new chapter are also added regarding that verification and compliance. Previously there were 12 chapters in Solas. Now we have 14 chapters, one of which is your verification and compliance. So clear grounds if they get any indication that ship has any information, ship has some problems or something, then they can anytime go for the port state inspection. Then the current Solas Convention includes some articles which set out your obligations of all the states and flag states to include the amendments and follow everything and get all their ships to maintain as per the standards of Solas and worldwide standards. So it has 14 chapters. First chapter is your general provision, which includes your regulations concerning the survey of various types of ships and issuing of documents. What are your ship certificates required and what are the surveys required of the ships? That all is included in chapter 1. That is your general provisions. Then also we have the provisions for controlling of ships in ports, how to get them inspected and in which flag state, how much time, which ships will be inspected, which ships will be targeted if they are substandard, whitelist, blacklisted. So all these things come under your first chapter, general provisions. Then chapter 2 has two parts. First one is your construction, that is subdivision and stability. Subdivision means the different divisions. So like you can see here, this is the hull. So it will be divided in different parts so that if there is any flooding, so it's not spread it to other compartments. So compartments are isolated. So subdivision and leading to stability. So different stability requirements of machinery, electrical installation, and ship structure is given in chapter 2.1. So especially subdivisions required in passenger ships, because on cargo ships we have the accommodations above the deck only, but in passenger ships many times we have the accommodation below the water level also. So there are more chances of entering water entering, and also it's there for increasing the capacity of passengers carrying and increase the tourism. So it the spaces have to be watertight, all the rooms, cabins, and all, and also the passage from one place to another, going from forward to aft, it has to be protected with watertight doors and watertight bulkheads. So that is your subdivision on passenger ships. So I've made a video regarding load lines and other protection and watertight, weathertight in other sections. You can see that, and must be such that after assumed damage to the ship's hull, so the requirement is such that if one compartment is flooded, it should not spread to other compartments. And if one compartment is completely flooded, the ship should have enough buoyancy that it can survive easily. So vessel should remain afloat even after sustained damage of one complete compartment, and all other compartments should remain watertight once you close the door. So different requirements for watertight doors and this thing is in the separate video. Then you should have a bilge pumping arrangement. Suppose there is water inside, so how you can pump it out, and there should be a damage stability requirement, how to repair them and check the stability. Then the degree of subdivision, how many subdivisions should be there. So regarding the subdivision load lines of passenger ships, I have made a separate video. Let's C1, C2. So different subdivision, as per the subdivisions and number of divisions, we get the capacity and load lines of the passenger ships. So measured by the maximum permissible distance between the two adjacent bulkheads. So as per the distance of the bulkheads or size of a room, the load lines and subdivisions are varied. So it will be as per the ship's length and the services where they are engaged. If they are going to North Sea or very rough waters, winter season, then you need to have more closer bulkheads. If they are just in coastal, then requirements will be less stringent. Highest degree of subdivisions applies to passenger ships because of the passengers and safety of life. And requirements covering machinery and electrical installations are also listed in this chapter 2 to ensure that the services which are essential for the safety of the ship, passengers, and crew are taken care of. Then we have something called gold based standards for oil tankers and bulk carriers. So what are these gold based standards as per adopted in 2010? That new ships which are designed and constructed, they should have a specific design life, that they are constructed for 20 years, 30 years, like that. And they should be environment safe and environment friendly, especially during recycling. So they should not carry any hazardous materials which are hazardous to environment, and like asbestos and all. So specific design and environment friendly and safe design has to be considered for all the ships and their lifetime. Then intact and specific damage conditions. So damage stability has to be developed for them so that they can sustain for a long time throughout their life. And as per these regulations, the ship should have adequate strength, integrity, so that it's there is no pollution or loss of life. Then we have chapter 2, second part, which is talking about the fire protection of the ship. So fire protection, fire detection, and fire extinguishing. And it is the main points are given here, and that more technical points are given in the attached FSS code, which is now mandatory as per this chapter 2. And it is divided into different sections: passenger ships, cargo ships, and tankers. And it includes the main things: that ship is divided into some vertical zones and main zones because of thermal and structural conductivity. And as per that, like, fire should not spread from one place to another. So we have different classes of bulkheads A, B, and C, which can withstand different temperatures of fire, and for different times: A0, A30, A60 for 30, 60, and 0 minutes. And there are proper boundaries, bulkhead, separation of accommodation space. And there is also a restricted use of combustible materials on the ship. You should not have any oily rags on any place, scattered oil leaks and all. And detection of fire in any zone. So we have fire zone fire detectors and fire zone alarms. In containment of fire through fire hoses, extinguishers, and all, what type of extinguishers, how many spares, and their periodic maintenance is all mentioned in this chapter. Then protection by means of escape. So escape routes and access routes for firefighting purposes. So all your firefighting equipment should always be readily accessible. And in case of fire, you should have proper like EBD and escape routes, like from engine room and any other spaces which we have. And you should have fire extinguishers as per your firefighting plan, and should be posted. Then fire wallet. So we have a separate video for fire plans and wallets and fire extinguishing materials and equipments. You can see that. Then possibility of ignition of flammable cargo vapors. So fixed firefighting systems for cargo areas are very important. The next comes is your life-saving appliances and arrangements. So chapter 3 is talking about life-saving appliances and arrangements, which includes the requirements for all your life-saving appliances like life buoys, life boards, life rafts, different types, when they should do maneuvering, swinging out, all those things, life jackets. And also there is a main requirements are given in this, and the technical requirements are given in the LSA code, which is mandatory as per this chapter. And it gives a technical LSA code gives a technical requirement and is mandatory as per regulation 34, and states that all life-saving appliance arrangements shall comply with LSA code. Then chapter 4 is about communication. So on ship we are communicating with radio communications and satellites. So it includes the GMDSS, Global Maritime Distress and Safety System, because communication is one of the most important thing to avoid any incidents. And it is divided for different types of ships. So cargo ships of 300 tons upwards for international voyages are required to carry all the equipments as per design. You should have duplicacy, dual equipments. If one equipment fail, other should have a you should have a backup for your MF, HF, and shore based maintenance, and your EGDIS, radar. All are two equipments are provided to EPIRBs in case of emergency. How to track the ship, nearby ship by SART, and faraway ship through satellite by EPIRBs. So all those things are listed in your chapter 4 of Solas. Then regulations in chapter 4 cover undertakings by contracting governments to provide radio communication services, as well as ships requirements for carriage of radio communication equipment. And there is ITU publications for your this thing, and that is also part and consulted by New Year doing about chapter 5, chapter 4, that is radio communication. Enhance safety of navigation. So it identifies that of for navigation, that's the main thing. The safety services, we see so many ships which are just banging each other, going aground. So your navigation passage plan, UKC, bridge watch keepings, standards, and all the charts to be updated, equipments to be updated like this and all. All requirements of all the bridge equipments and watchkeeping standards training is given in chapter 5. So it should be provided as per your flag state requirements, and there has to be a log for maintaining all the equipments and repairing, and all the details should be mentioned. Deck log book, all weather, weather monitoring and all, course monitoring, voyage monitoring, everything, traffic monitoring has to be done and recorded as per this chapter 5. So what all operations are done on wheelhouse bridge and concerning to navigation are it is per chapter 5, and also in compliance with the flag state rules if there are any extra like ROR, call regs, collision regulation rules are also should be complied with this. So this is in contrast to the convention which applies to certain classes of ship engaged on international voyages, because Solas is mostly for international industry, so we have rules for them. Then next is your ship's routing and SAR convention related to. So subjects covered which include in your this chapter 5 is also concerning to your meteorological services of the ships, ice patrolling services, ships routing, and the maintenance of search and rescue through IMSAR. Then also the main point is in this is that master has an obligation to assist somebody in case of distress as per your contracted governments or flag state wherever you are, and also take to the port of refuge to ensure that all ships be sufficiently and efficiently manned from a safety point of view. So ships should be sufficiently and efficiently manned. That's one of the main duties of master, and to assist if anybody is in distress. Then the requirements of different equipment, SART, EPIRB, GPS for tracking positions and keeping the ship safe and on course and on voyage. So we have VDR, voice data recorders, and automatic ship identification system, AIS. So nowadays, you know, from internet also and from AIS, ports and all other can know a ship's location anytime, anywhere if you are in the network of satellites of AIS. Then chapter 6 is about carriage of all the cargoes. So of course the ship his main purpose is to carry the cargoes, and there are main requirements, practical requirements are listed here, and this chapter is supported by some other publications like CSC, Container Safety Code. Then you have timber deck cargoes. Then you have Blue Code for bulk loading and unloading of cargoes. Then you have Grain Code, International Grain Code for if you are carrying grain. Then IMSBC, International Maritime Safe Solid Bulk Cargoes. So details of different types of ships and different types of cargoes is given in this. And for dangerous cargoes, we have next chapter. So chapter 6 covers all types of cargo except liquid and gases in bulk, which owing to their particular hazards, because so many times people think that bulk carriers and bulk cargoes are not hazardous, but there have been many ships which have broken into two, or there have been some explosions on bulk carriers also. So it's not so easily said that these bulk carriers are not harmful. And there's special requirements, you see you have a special chapter and so many books just because related to bulk carriers. Then these requirements also includes the storage and securing of cargo, of course, or cargo units, like you have break bulk cargo, steel coils and steel plates and steel bars, then containers, different types of containers. Then timber securing is very important, especially on deck. Then heavy lift. So all these things are given in your chapter 6, grain, which has a very special requirements and care because it's part of food which we eat. And grain has to comply with grain code. So grain code is mandatory. IMSBC is also mandatory now. BLU code. Then chapter 7. Now what about dangerous cargo and tankers? So that all is covered in chapter 7, carriage of dangerous goods. So as per this chapter, IMDG code, which has two volumes and one supplement, is mandatory. And your storage, segregation, labeling, marking, placarding, tracking. We have a separate video, complete IMDG information. You can see that. So it has two parts. Chapter 7, carriage of dangerous goods in package form, includes provisions for the classification, packing, marking, labeling, and placarding. Different classification of the cargoes, documentation, your cargo manifest, and your storage of dangerous goods separated from and away from. Contracting governments, that all the flag states are required to issue instructions to the shipper and all the parties as per the chapter, making IMDG code mandatory and constantly update. IMDG code is updated every 2 years, new edition is there, and time to time there are amendments. So you can see in the IMDG video, and update it to accommodate new dangerous goods and to supplement or revise existing provisions. If new cargoes are discovered, it will be in your IMDG, or new properties are discovered for old cargoes. Then, first part of your dangerous goods is carriage of dangerous goods in solid form in bulk carriers, like you have sulfur, ammonium nitrate, like you had in Beirut blast, this ammonium nitrate explosives cargoes. So all this is covered in part A. 1 covers the documentation, storage and segregation requirements for the goods and requires reporting of incidents involving such goods. Like you see many times you have some concentrates, nickel ore ship is bauxite ore ship broke down at mid sea and sink. So all these incidents have to be reported so that the safety procedures can be improved. Then part B is for ships carrying dangerous goods in liquid, like your oil tanker, chemical tankers, basically chemical tankers. So IBC code is mandatory as per part B. And then part C is about gas ships. So IGC code or International Gas Carrier Code is mandatory as per part C of chapter 7 of Solas, which requires mention the construction equipment, ships design, and safety standards for gas carrier ships. Then also there is a requirement for nuclear fuel, which is included in part D, which has special requirements of carriage of packaged irradiated nuclear fuel and plutonium and high level radioactive waste on board, how to tackle with them and carry them, store them, what are the different requirements and tracking requirements, and high level radioactive waste also, like your explosives and radioactive materials. Also, the carriage of dangerous goods to be complied with your relevant provisions of INF code. So, INF code is mandatory as per Chapter 7 of Solas, and also as per IMDG. At the end, you have mentioning of nuclear fuel. Then, Chapter 8 is dealing with the nuclear ships. So, some ships which gives they are dealing with nuclear warfare, like navy ships and all. So it gives a basic requirement for nuclear power ships and is particularly concerned with your radiation hazards, because nuclear radiations are very harmful for human health. And detailed and comprehensive code for this nuclear merchant ships is dealt with in chapter 8. Then chapter 9 is for your safety and security. So no, 9 is only for safety, and it is management for the safe operation of ships as per all the requirements. Details are in ISM code, and the main parts or these things are given in the chapter 9, which talks about your safety committee and safety officer and safe operation of ships. You should have a DPA, designated person ashore, and safety management system, ISM code. and all this is as per chapter 9. And also about your speed craft. So chapter 10 talks about your safety measures for high speed crafts, like your hovercrafts or some coast guard vessels are there. So it makes mandatory the high speed craft code, and all the regulations for that are given here, seaplanes and all. Then chapter 11 is about safety and security, maritime safety and security, two parts. Part 1 is about maritime safety. So this chapter clarifies the requirement to authorization of recognized organizations represented by flag state, that is your classification societies and some recognized organizations which can carry out survey and inspection. Otherwise anybody can board the ship, and they don't have proper training, and they don't know the requirements, and ship standards are not maintained. Then you have enhanced surveys, different years from 15 years, 10, 20 years. The ship's steel structure, you can see in the figure 2011 ESP code. The ship's steel structures are inspected, close up surveys are done, thickness measurements are done, and port state control inspections are done to check the condition, seaworthiness, and integrity of the ship. That is all as per your chapter 11. Then chapter 11 part 2 is about the special measures to enhance maritime security. That is your ISPS code. We know the 9/11 case of World Trade Tower in US, and which led to this ISPS code and inclusion of this chapter 11 in Solas, making your ship security a very important part, and also in the airplanes and all. So it has two parts again. Part A is mandatory, and Part B contains the guidance for how to comply with the security requirements of the ship and mandatory requirements of Chapter 11. It also says that the master in has can exercise his professional judgment over decision. It has overall authority, overriding authority, and due for the security of the ship, we can override some rules or whatever, so that ship's life, people's life is saved. Like in case of piracy, you have on some ships. And of course, he should consider the constraints of company master and chartering in while making his decisions. So these are tough decisions, but still, since he is the person on in charge, he has the overriding authority. And especially for piracy, we have best management practices for piracy areas, BMP5, developed by IMO, and it requires all ships to be provided with the ship security alert system, so that in case of piracy, people can be alerted immediately from master's cabin or ship's bridge, anywhere which is hidden and people don't know, and all parties are notified. Also the requirements of port facilities and drills, security drills, search, providing among as per the different countries and flag states. Port facility security assessments, your declaration of securities and security assessment of the ports. Other regulations in this chapter cover the information to IMO for the control of ship import, or access to the ship. There should be only one access, and it should be always manned. The gangway should be manned. Visitors should be given ID cards. Detention and restrictions if these things are not followed. Then we have chapter 12, which is additional safety measures for bulk carriers. So let's see the next chapter. So whatever things which are not covered till now will regarding safety will be covered in chapter 12. So chapter 12 includes mainly the structural requirements of bulk carriers, like that, especially over 150 meters in length and above, that as per how much length, what type of framing, and what type of thickness of the plates should be used, shell expansion plans and all. Then chapter 13 deals with verification of compliance, as we talked about, is a new chapter. It's come into 2016, which talks about that all uh, Solas, all chapters and everything has to be complied and checked by both state control and inspections, like state inspections, and also new chapters are included in Marpol, every annex for verification and compliance, even in your MLC. And all other conventions now will be included with verification and compliance, which has IMO has developed a specific checklist and procedures to check all the ships and guide all the inspectors about each and every point which will be checked to verify the each and every chapter of each convention of IMO. Then chapter 14 is about the polar code for ships navigating in ice waters, and it requires the safety measures for ships operating in polar waters, and it makes mandatory from 2017 the introduction, that is two parts of polar code. First is part 1A, international code for ships operating in polar waters. It is your polar code. So these are some all 14 chapters of your Solas. So guys, don't forget to subscribe, and we will keep continuing with the latest videos regarding complete list of all the requirements of your MMD exams, starting from second mates phase 1, and then we'll continue to phase 2 and ASM. So keep following, subscribing and sharing. Thank you.